I discovered what my son truly thought of me on a Thursday afternoon at Hai, Bon Mui Bai, Ma, when he accidentally forwarded me an email meant for his wife. The subject line read, "Mom's house, timeline update." I was sitting in my kitchen in Savannah, Georgia. The same kitchen where I had taught him to crack eggs without getting shells in the batter, where I had bandaged his scraped knees, where I had celebrated every birthday from his first to his 18th. The ceiling fan turned slowly overhead, stirring the warm September air, and somewhere outside, a mockingbird was singing. I remember these details because they are the last peaceful things I noticed before everything changed. The email was brief. My son had written, "She's getting more forgetful. Doctor appointment next week if we can get a dementia diagnosis. Power of attorney should be easy. House is worth at least $300,000 now. We need to move faster before she does something stupid, like donating to that church again. 6 months max." I read it 3 times. Then I set my phone face down on the kitchen table, next to my half-finished cup of Earl Grey, and I sat very still. The mockingbird kept singing, the ceiling fan kept turning, and I kept breathing, in and out, the way you do when you are trying to convince yourself that what you have just seen cannot possibly be real. My name is Miriam Chen, and I am 73 years old. I have lived in this house for 41 years. My husband David and I bought it in 1981 when the neighborhood was still considered up and coming, and the live oaks in the front yard were barely taller than I was. We raised 2 children here. We buried a dog named Biscuit in the backyard, under the magnolia tree. David died in the master bedroom upstairs, holding my hand, 7 years ago this October. Every floorboard in this house knows the sound of my footsteps. Every wall has heard my laughter and my tears, and now my son wanted to take it from me. I should explain how we got here. After David passed, I managed well enough on my own. I kept busy. I volunteered at the food bank on Tuesdays, attended book club on Thursdays, and sang in the church choir on Sundays. I tended my garden, read my novels, called my children. My daughter Amy lives in Portland with her husband and 2 teenagers. We talk every Sunday evening, and she visits twice a year. She is busy with her own life, as she should be. She has never asked me for anything except recipes and advice, both of which I give freely. My son Daniel is different. He has always been different. As a child, Daniel was charming and bright, the kind of boy who could talk his way out of any trouble and into any heart. Teachers adored him. Girls called the house constantly. He had a smile that could light up a room and a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world when he focused his attention on you. But even then, I noticed things. The way he would cry when he did not get what he wanted, not from genuine distress but from calculation, watching through his tears to see if his performance was working. The way he borrowed money from his grandmother and never paid it back. The way other children's toys would sometimes end up in his backpack. David said, "I worried too much. He's just a kid," he would say. "He'll grow out of it." Daniel is 51 now. He has not grown out of it. He married Victoria 18 years ago. I tried to like her. I truly did. But there was always something in the way she looked at me, at my house, at my things, that made me uneasy. A hunger, a calculation. She complimented my antique furniture a little too often, asked about my investments a little too casually, wondered aloud about property values in my neighborhood a little too frequently. When David was sick, she visited exactly twice. Both times, she spent more time looking around the house than looking at him. After David died, Daniel called more often. He was worried about me, he said. I should not be alone in that big house. I was getting older. What if something happened? He and Victoria would be happy to move in, to help take care of things. They were renting an apartment across town, nothing special, and they could save money while making sure I was safe. I said no. Gently but firmly. I valued my independence. I told him. I was perfectly capable of managing on my own. I had good neighbors, a strong community, a life I had built over decades. I did not need caretakers. That was 5 years ago. The requests kept coming. Not demands. Never demands. Daniel was too smart for that. Instead, there were suggestions, implications, carefully planted seeds of doubt. Had I remembered to pay the electric bill? Was I sure I had locked the back door? He had heard about an elderly woman in Florida who had fallen and lain on the floor for 3 days before anyone found her. Wouldn't it be safer if someone was there, just to check on me? I held firm, but I will admit that as the years passed, doubts crept in. I did forget things sometimes, small things, where I had put my reading glasses, whether I had already watered the ferns, the name of an actress in a movie I had seen a dozen times. These lapses frightened me more than I wanted to admit. I began to wonder if Daniel was right. Maybe I was not as sharp as I used to be. Maybe I did need help. Then, last March, I had what Daniel dramatically calls the incident. I was cooking dinner and got distracted by a phone call from Amy. I left a pot on the stove, and it boiled dry. The smoke alarm went off. One of my neighbors, sweet old Mr. Patterson, from next door, called the fire department just to be safe. There was no fire, no damage, just a ruined pot and a lot of embarrassment. But for Daniel, it was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He arrived the next day with Victoria and 2 suitcases. Just for a few weeks, he said, until we're sure you're okay. He was so concerned, so solicitous. He made me tea. Victoria plumped the cushions on my sofa. They installed themselves in the guest bedroom with an efficiency that suggested they had been planning this for some time. That was 6 months ago. They are still here. At first, it was not so bad. Daniel handled some of the household tasks that had become burdensome. He mowed the lawn, fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom, changed the light bulbs I could no longer reach. Victoria cooked dinner most nights, though her meals were bland and she refused to use enough salt. I told myself this was a fair trade. Company in exchange for help, family taking care of family. But slowly, so slowly, that I almost did not notice, things began to shift. It started with small things. Victoria rearranging my kitchen, moving things to different cabinets for better flow. Daniel suggesting I should not drive at night anymore, then during rush hour, then at all. My car keys migrating from their usual hook by the door to various drawers and countertops, never where I had left them. My mail being brought inside and opened before I could see it. Daniel offering to help with my finances, to take some of the burden off my shoulders. Then bigger things. Victoria inviting her friends over, without asking, filling my house with strangers who looked at my belongings with appraising eyes. Daniel making comments about how much space I had, how wasteful it was for one person, how the downstairs guest room would make a perfect home office for Victoria. The subtle suggestions that I should spend more time upstairs, in my bedroom, out of the way. The television in the living room always tuned to shows I did not like, at volumes I could not tolerate. I began to feel like a guest in my own home. I tried to talk to Daniel about it. I chose a quiet moment, when Victoria was out shopping, and I asked him gently if they had thought about when they might get their own place again. His face changed, just for a moment, before he smoothed it back into that charming smile I had known since his childhood. But I saw it. Irritation, annoyance, something harder beneath. "Mom," he said, "we're here to help you. Don't you appreciate that? After everything we've sacrificed?" I did not ask what he had sacrificed. I already knew the answer would only make me sad. After that conversation, things got worse. The helpful suggestions became pointed criticism. The concerned check-ins became interrogations. "Where did you put the remote? Did you eat lunch today or did you forget again? Why did you move those papers? You know you shouldn't touch important documents." Every small lapse, every forgotten name, every misplaced item was noted, catalogued, presented as evidence of my declining capabilities. Victoria was the worst. She had a way of speaking to me in a loud, slow voice, as if I were a child or a foreigner who could not understand English. She would tell people, right in front of me, that I was having a hard time and needed constant supervision. She encouraged me to take naps in the afternoon, then used those naps as proof that I was sleeping all the time and could not care for myself. She started talking about assisted living facilities, leaving brochures on the kitchen counter where I would find them. And through it all, I kept quiet. I kept accommodating. I kept hoping that if I just waited, if I just was patient, my son would remember who I was, who he was, the boy who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers for the prettiest mom in the world, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend broke up with him, the young man who danced with me at his wedding, whispering, "Thank you for everything," in my ear. I kept hoping he was still in there, somewhere. Then came the email. The afternoon I received it, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The mockingbird stopped singing. The light shifted from gold to amber, to the soft blue of early evening. I heard Daniel and Victoria come home, heard them moving around upstairs, heard their muffled voices through the ceiling. They did not check on me. They rarely did, unless they needed something. I thought about my options. I could confront them, demand an explanation, ask my son, directly, if he truly believed I had dementia, if he truly planned to take my home. But I knew how that conversation would go. Daniel would deny everything. He would say, I had misread the email, taken it out of context, made something out of nothing. He would suggest that my reaction itself was proof of my confusion, my paranoia, my declining mental state. Victoria would agree. With that sympathetic voice and those cold eyes, they would double down. They would accelerate their plan, and I would be even more vulnerable than before. No, confrontation was not the answer. I thought about calling Amy. My daughter would believe me. She would be furious on my behalf. She would want to fly down immediately, to intervene, to protect me. But Amy has her own family, her own responsibilities, her own life, 3,000 miles away. And even if she came, what could she do? Daniel is her brother. This would tear our family apart. I have already lost my husband. I could not bear to lose my children to each other. So I did something different. I did nothing, or rather, I appeared to do nothing. The next morning, I came downstairs as usual. I made my tea. I smiled at Victoria when she emerged from the guest room. I asked Daniel about his day. I was pleasant, cooperative, exactly the confused old woman they believed me to be. And while I smiled, while I nodded, while I played my part, I began to plan. The first thing I did was make an appointment with my doctor. Not the doctor Daniel had been pushing me to see, a friend of Victoria's who specialized in geriatric care and who would, I was certain, find exactly what they wanted him to find. My own doctor, whom I had been seeing for 15 years, who knew me, who knew my history, who knew I was as sharp as I had ever been. I drove myself to the appointment. I told Daniel I was going to book club. He did not question it. He had become complacent, certain of my obedience, confident that I was too far gone to cause any problems. Dr. Ramirez was thorough. She ran tests. She asked questions. She watched me carefully. And at the end, she said what I already knew. I was in excellent health for my age. My memory was normal. My cognition was intact. There was no evidence whatsoever of dementia or any other neurological condition. Miriam, she said, looking at me over her glasses, is there something going on at home that I should know about? I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What you're describing is elder abuse, financial exploitation. It's more common than you might think, and it's often perpetrated by family members. There are resources available to you. Legal protections. I thanked her. I took the pamphlets she offered, and I asked her to do one more thing for me. To document our conversation, to note her findings, to create a paper trail that would prove, if it ever came to that I was of sound mind and body. Over the following weeks, I gathered more evidence. I retrieved my mail before Daniel could intercept it. I checked my bank accounts online from the public library, where no one could monitor my activity. I found unauthorized transactions, small amounts at first, then larger ones. Victoria's online shopping habit. Daniel's business investments. Over $8,000 in 6 months. Siphoned from my accounts without my knowledge or consent. I took screenshots. I saved records. I documented everything. I also talked to a lawyer, Mrs. Beatrice Holland, recommended by a friend from church. She was 78 years old, had been practicing law for 52 years, and had a look in her eye that said she had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. I told her my situation, showed her my evidence. Your son, she said, is committing financial fraud. Your daughter-in-law may be an accessory. You have grounds for criminal charges if you want to pursue them. I thought about this. Daniel in handcuffs, a court case, testimony, my family's private shame made public, my son's face on the news. What I want, I said, is my house back, my peace, my life. Mrs. Holland smiled. It was not a kind smile, but it was a satisfied one. Then let's talk about eviction. Under Georgia law, I learned I had the right to remove anyone from my property with proper notice. Daniel and Victoria were not tenants. They had no lease, paid no rent. They were guests who had overstayed their welcome. Unwanted occupants. I could ask them to leave, and if they refused, I could have them removed. But I wanted to do this carefully. I wanted to do this in a way that left no doubt, no room for manipulation, no possibility that Daniel could twist the situation to his advantage. So I prepared. I changed my passwords, all of them. Bank accounts, email, everything. I removed Daniel's name from any accounts where I had mistakenly added him as an authorized user. I contacted my financial advisor and put additional safeguards in place. I updated my will, leaving the house to Amy, with specific language about Daniel's exclusion and the reasons for it. I also changed the locks, but I was smart about it. I told Daniel and Victoria that I was having the entire house rekeyed because I had lost a set of keys and was worried about security. They were present when the locksmith came. They watched him work. They even helped me test the new keys afterward. I gave them each a copy of the new key that night. What they did not know was that I had arranged for the locksmith to return the next morning, while Daniel was at work and Victoria was at her yoga class, to change the locks again. Different locks this time. Locks for which only I had the keys. The next step was the hardest. I waited. I waited through 2 more weeks of condescension and control. 2 more weeks of Victoria's pitying looks and Daniel's impatient sighs. 2 more weeks of feeling like a stranger in my own home. But I was not the same woman who had accepted that treatment before. I was a woman with a plan. A woman with evidence. A woman who knew exactly what was coming. On the morning I had chosen, I woke early. I showered and dressed carefully. I put on the blue dress I had worn to David's memorial service, the one that made me feel strong. I pinned my grandmother's brooch to my collar. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a woman who was not confused, not helpless, not ready to fade away. I went downstairs and made breakfast. Eggs, toast, orange juice. I set the table for 3. When Daniel and Victoria came down, they found me smiling, pleasant, exactly as expected. "I've been thinking," I said, as we ate. Daniel's eyes lit up. Victoria sat straighter in her chair. They thought this was it, the moment they had been waiting for, the moment I surrendered. "I've realized," I continued, "that I can't keep doing this. It's too much for me. Daniel reached across the table and patted my hand. We know, Mom. We've been saying that for months. But don't worry. We're here. We'll take care of everything. No, I said. You misunderstand. What I can't keep doing is living with you. The silence that followed was profound. Mom, Daniel said slowly. What are you saying? I'm saying that I would like you to leave. Today. I kept my voice calm, even, the way I had practiced. Your things have been packed. I've arranged for a storage unit for anything that won't fit in your car. Here is a list of extended stay hotels in the area. I'll pay for the first 2 weeks while you look for an apartment. Victoria's face turned red. You can't be serious. You can't even take care of yourself. Actually, I can. I've been taking care of myself quite well, despite your interference. But since you seem to have concerns, I have documentation from my physician confirming that I am in full possession of my mental faculties. I also have documentation of the $8,000 you've stolen from my accounts over the past 6 months, and I have documentation of your plan to have me declared incompetent so you could take my home. I watched my son's face as I spoke. I watched the charm drain away, replaced by something ugly, something I had always suspected was there, but had never allowed myself to see clearly. You read my email, he said. Yes. You forwarded it to me by mistake. Perhaps you're the one who should see a doctor about memory problems. Victoria stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. You can't throw us out. We have rights. You have no rights in my home. You are not tenants. You have no lease. You are guests. And your welcome has expired. I have spoken with a lawyer. I have filed the appropriate paperwork. If you are not gone by 5 o'clock this afternoon, I will call the police and have you removed. Daniel stood too. He was taller than me, broader, younger. For a moment, I felt afraid, but only for a moment. You won't do this, he said. I'm your son. Yes, I said. You are. And that makes what you've done so much worse. There was more. Shouting. Threats. Tears. Eventually, when Daniel realized his usual tactics were not working, Victoria called me names I will not repeat. Daniel warned me that I would regret this, that I would need them, that I would be alone. I have been alone for 7 years, I said. I have managed. And I would rather be alone by choice than surrounded by people who see me as nothing but an obstacle between them and what they want. They left at Bon Mui Bai P.M. I know the exact time because I was watching the clock, counting down the minutes, holding my breath until I heard their car pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Then I walked to the front door. I locked it. I slid the deadbolt home. I pressed my palm against the wood, warm from the afternoon sun, and I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 6 months. The house was quiet. Not empty, the way it had sometimes felt since David died, but peaceful, full of the sounds I had missed. The tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the creak of the old floorboards settling, the distant hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I walked through every room, the living room, where David used to read the paper in his armchair, the dining room, where we had hosted countless holiday dinners, the kitchen, where I had taught my children to cook, the backyard, where Biscuit was buried under the magnolia tree, and where David's roses still bloomed every spring. This was my home, my life, my history. And no one was going to take it from me. That evening, I called Amy. I told her everything. She cried, she raged. She offered to fly down, to stay with me, to help me deal with the aftermath. I'm okay, I told her. Really. I'm better than I've been in months. But Mom, what about Daniel? What about the family? I thought about this for a long time before I answered. Daniel made his choice, I said finally. He chose money over his mother. He chose lies over love. That's not a family I recognize. That's not a family I want to preserve. Amy was quiet. Then she said, I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Now tell me about the kids. We talked for an hour, about her teenagers and their college plans, about her husband's promotion, about the rain in Portland and the sunshine in Savannah. Normal things, family things, the things that matter. After we hung up, I made myself dinner. A real dinner, with salt and spices and all the flavors Victoria had tried to take away. I ate at my own table, in my own chair, in my own kitchen. I drank a glass of wine from the bottle David and I had been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No footsteps overhead. No muffled conversations about my future. No sense of being watched, evaluated, judged. Just the quiet darkness of my bedroom, the familiar shape of shadows on the ceiling, the peace of solitude chosen rather than imposed. 3 months have passed since that day. Daniel has not contacted me. I am told, through mutual acquaintances, that he and Victoria have moved to Florida. I do not know if they are happy. I find that I do not care. What I know is this. I am 73 years old. I live alone in a house full of memories and light. I volunteer at the food bank on Tuesdays, attend book club on Thursdays, and sing in the church choir on Sundays. I tend my garden, read my novels, call my daughter every Sunday evening. I have lunch with friends, dinner with neighbors, coffee with the lovely young couple who just moved in next door. I am not the woman my son tried to make me. Not confused, not helpless, not fading away. I am exactly who I have always been, just older. And I have learned something important about family, about love, about trust. Family is not just blood. It is care and respect, and the willingness to see each other clearly. It is showing up not for what you can take, but for what you can give. It is loving someone not because they can do something for you, but simply because they exist. Daniel forgot that. Maybe he never knew it, but I do, and I will not forget. There is a photograph on my mantle of David and me on our wedding day. We are young and beautiful, and completely unaware of everything that lies ahead. The children we will raise, the life we will build, the joys and sorrows, the triumphs and failures, the decades of ordinary days that add up to an extraordinary existence. In the photograph, David is looking at me with such love, such certainty, that even now it makes my heart ache. I talk to him sometimes, not out loud, but in my head. I tell him about my days, about the garden, about Amy and the grandchildren. I tell him about Daniel too, about what happened, about what I did. I imagine him listening, nodding, understanding, and I imagine him saying what he always said, whenever I faced something hard. You're stronger than you know, Miriam. You've always been stronger than you know. He was right. I am. Yesterday, a mockingbird returned to the magnolia tree in my backyard. It sang all morning, and I sat on the porch with my tea and listened. The sound was so beautiful, so full of life and joy, that I found myself crying. Not from sadness, from something else. Gratitude, maybe, or relief, or simply the overwhelming feeling of being present in a moment, in a life that belongs entirely to me. This is my house, my home, my story, and I am not finished writing it yet.